Okay, so it's been about 45 minutes. As you can tell, our lye solution is cleared up a lot. It's always going to be a little bit foggy, but you want to make sure that your lye is completely dissolved in your water. I've got the fats melted down. I just microwaved those. It took 2 times of 1 minute. Now we are going to add our lye solution into our fats. Now on this part, you're going to want to prepare yourself to move fast just in case, especially if you're using fragrance oils, because sometimes fragrance oils will accelerate your soap batter. Acceleration is when you get the thickness that you're looking for with your soap batter too fast. It gets really hard to work with when it's like pudding consistency. So you're looking for a light trace, which I will explain that when I get the immersion blender out, just a little bit thinner than pudding. Okay, so let's get the immersion blender plugged in and ready. Whatever oil, essential oil or fragrance oil that you are using, make sure that is on hand. I like to use, I guess they're called pipets. I've called them pipets for 12 years and I get all sorts of heat about it, but when I first started making soap, I didn't know how it was pronounced, so I said pipets. And after calling it pipets for about 3 or 4 years, finally somebody corrected me and said, you know, they're called pipets, right? Well, too late. The habit was already started, so they're pipets to me. But anyhow, you get the gist of the idea. If you don't have pipets, then you are going to measure out with your scale 0.7 ounces of essential oils or 1 ounce of fragrance oils. So first we're going to add the lye solution into our fats. We're going to use the immersion blender to get that all blended up nice and smooth. Then we're going to add our fragrance oil, blend it a little bit more, and then it'll be ready for the mold. So I'm going to put the blender in to the fats and slowly pour the lye solution onto the immersion blender. This helps to prevent splashes. All right, now that we've got that in there, this is where it's going to get a little bit loud, so I apologize for that. You're going to work out any bubbles and then pulse until it starts to thicken. You can tell that it's starting to thicken already. It's much easier to stir when it's thicker because there's less a chance of splashing. All right. Now we're nice and creamy texture. This is a light trace, okay? This is where it's not super thick, but it's just barely breaking the surface of the batter when it drips. This is where we are going to add in whatever oil, essential oil, fragrance oil that you're going to use. Now you need to prepare yourself to move quickly just in case this gets too thick too fast. Some oils do, some oils do not. Give it a quick swirl, and then we're going to pulse again. Always make sure you burp your stick blender. That's tapping it like this to get the air bubbles out. You have a lesser chance of splashing it. we're gonna stick with this. Okay, see how we're just a little, I'm gonna try to pull this up here so you can see. See how we're just a little bit drippy? That's called a light trace. And this is usually really easy to work with. Now we are ready for our mold. Whatever mold you're using, it doesn't really matter. Like I said, just as long as it's not metal. I gotta do this to where I can still get into the camera. Your spatula, your batter, your mold. No real prep is necessary unless you're using a wooden mold. You'll have to line it with like parchment paper or something. But like I said, try to stick with something silicone or plastic. Trust me, it just saves you a bunch of heartache in the long run. So now we're going to pour our soap into our mold. And then we are going to cover and insulate this. Sorry, I'm trying to make sure this is still within your screen. I had a little bit left the first tutorial that I did, so I'm probably going to have enough left for another bar, for a separate bar. Yeah. Okay, and once you get it into your mold, you're going to give it a nice little tap. That way, if there's any air bubbles in the bottom, they can work their way to the surface. I like to spritz mine with some rubbing alcohol to pop any bubbles that are on the top. It's not necessary. You can or you can't. It doesn't matter. I just like to get a really smooth top. Need to throw this into a separate mold. And I'll probably just toss that in the bathroom for some hand soap or something. This recipe, whether you're using this one or the one with strictly lard, lard is going to be a super mild cleansing with a moisturizer, a mild moisturizer, if you're using that recipe. If you're using this recipe, which is the lard and coconut oil, you're going to have a slightly more cleansing to it and a little less on the moisturizer, so there's more cleansing and less moisturizing. You can experiment with it and see whatever works well for you. The coconut and lard combination I loved when I first started 8 years ago because the coconut helps to make a little bit of a harder bar. So, all right, so now we are going to get this insulated. You want to make sure that you do this in an area that's going to be uninterrupted. I like to go at very least 24 hours, but if you want to be on the super duper safe side, 48 hours is best. I have all sorts of oddball boxes floating around this house. Every time I get something shipped or whatnot, I save the boxes, and this is why. You're going to want to insulate this for the time that it is sitting. 24 hours at absolute minimum, 48 hours for best results. And I just take a few old kitchen towels or whatnot and just cover them up. That helps to hold your heat in. This is the saponification process. This is what is taking your caustic soda or lye from the stage of being ridiculously dangerous to safe to use for soap. So this is the process, the chemical reaction that is turning this batter into an actual soap substance rather than a chemical that can burn your skin. That is why it's important to make sure that your soap is cured. So on the next video, which isn't going to be until another day and a half to 2 days, we'll do the unboxing and I'll show you how to cut it. Like I said, you don't need any super fancy equipment. You can get these at the Dollar Tree. That's where I got mine. But just a basic kitchen knife will work just fine too. And we're going to go ahead and unmold, and I'll show you how to cut up your bars and the special way that I like to store my bars while they cure. Curing is essentially important. You have to cure your bars of soap. Absolutely no cheating, no exception to that rule because it's very dangerous. You could burn yourself. So We're going to let this sit for the next 48 hours, and then I will come back. The next video won't be as long and detailed because it's just going to be the cutting. But I'm so glad that you joined me for this one. I hope you absolutely enjoy making soap for you and your family. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask, especially if it's before you get started. Better safe than sorry. So, in the meantime, I'll see you in about 48 hours.